At 1:23 in the morning, Pripyat saw a flash brighter than lightning, and nobody knew what had escaped. Inside Reactor 4, alarms screamed while operators faced an impossible fact. The machine beneath them had vanished. A young technician opened a corridor door, and hot dust rushed past him toward rooms still full of workers. Beyond the broken wall, the reactor core stood open to the sky, burning without any ordinary flame. The first emergency call reported a roof fire, not a nuclear catastrophe, sending firefighters toward invisible danger. 4 kilometers away, apartment windows opened as families watched the glow, believing the plant remained under control. Fire engines raced through sleeping Pripyat, carrying men trained for flames, but given no warning about radiation. They unrolled hoses beside scattered black blocks, unaware each fragment came from deep inside the destroyed reactor. One firefighter kicked glowing debris aside, treating the most dangerous material in the city like ordinary rubble. Meanwhile, plant workers forced water into pipes connected to a reactor that no longer had a sealed core. Their small dosimeters climbed to maximum and stopped, making catastrophic radiation appear merely high, not immeasurable. In the administration building, managers demanded confirmation, because admitting the core was open meant admitting everything had failed. Across Pripyat, curious residents gathered on balconies while a radioactive plume crossed playgrounds, gardens, and open windows. At the city hospital, nurses prepared for burn victims, not patients whose clothing carried contamination indoors. On the turbine roof, firefighters climbed higher, protecting Reactor 3 while deadly particles settled across their uniforms. The fires began shrinking before dawn, creating the comforting illusion that the disaster itself was being contained. But every extinguished flame revealed the deeper threat. Radiation needed no smoke, heat, or visible warning. Telephone lines filled with guarded reports, each official passing uncertainty upward, while withholding urgency from everyone below. Near the reactor, experienced firefighters began weakening without understanding that the greatest danger could not be seen. Doctors washed faces, removed uniforms, and treated nausea while contaminated boots quietly spread danger through hospital corridors. Plant leaders still insisted the reactor remained intact because Soviet engineering doctrine said such destruction was impossible. A worker reached a shattered observation point and saw stars through the place where the reactor roof belonged.
His report traveled back to the control room, where disbelief became more powerful than the evidence itself.
Nearby reactors continued operating as crews fought to prevent one destroyed unit from pulling the entire station down. By sunrise, Pripyat looked normal, yet every street had become part of an accident residents could not see. Police sealed approaches near the plant, protecting the response zone, while ordinary citizens received no evacuation order. Fishermen cast lines into the Pripyat River as ash-like particles drifted silently onto water, boats, and clothing. Morning buses carried workers toward factories and shops because the city's official schedule continued exactly as planned. Children rolled bicycles beneath a clear spring sky, while radioactive iodine entered bodies through every ordinary breath. Then military washing trucks appeared, spraying streets, without explaining why a supposedly controlled fire required decontamination. Inside the local committee building, panic, transportation, and authority, while radiation measurements kept rising. Specialists arrived with stronger instruments, and numbers once dismissed as impossible now appeared across the city map. A helicopter crossed the ruined reactor, revealing graphite fire and a plume moving beyond Chernobyl. The aerial view destroyed the final illusion. This was not a damaged roof, but an exposed nuclear core.
Calls reached Moscow, where every decision gained political weight, and every delayed minute increased civilian exposure.
Officials discussed evacuation, yet nobody wanted responsibility for moving an entire model Soviet city without permission. At breakfast, families drank milk and opened windows, following routines that unknowingly increased their contact with contamination. One exhausted plant worker returned home pale and shaking, but could only tell his family there had been fire.
By midday, hospital number 126 filled with firefighters and operators whose symptoms worsened faster than doctors expected.
Their uniforms were removed and piled together, turning ordinary protective clothing into a concentrated radioactive source. Outside, wedding photographs, market errands, and garden work continued beneath a plume nobody was permitted to name. The city radio played normal programming, offering music and announcements, while the most important warning remained absent. At schools and courtyards, parents quietly exchanged rumors about the fire, still unaware of the invisible danger around them. New workers were still transported toward the station, entering a disaster zone because production orders had not fully stopped. Beyond the rooftops, the plume crossed pine forest and farmland, carrying contamination far outside the plant perimeter. Milk trucks collected from nearby farms, linking invisible fallout to kitchens before authorities could control the food supply. Pharmacies had no public instruction to distribute iodine, leaving families without a simple protective action during crucial hours. The information system worked upward toward officials, not outward toward citizens whose bodies were absorbing the consequences. Rumors finally pushed some families toward the roads, but without facts, maps, or orders, escape became guesswork. Radiation teams moved through Pripyat with meters hidden inside cars, measuring citizens who never knew they were being measured. By afternoon, the numbers forced a conclusion officials had resisted. Pripyat could not safely remain occupied. The evacuation decision formed slowly, but thousands of buses, drivers, police, and destinations still had to be organized.
Across the region, bus depots received urgent nighttime orders without being told why so many vehicles were needed.
Drivers left their families and joined a growing convoy, each bus heading toward a city still officially normal. In Pripyat, evening television showed routine programs while residents searched windows for clues beyond the government's silence. No siren sounded, no public announcement came, and no parent knew whether closing a window was already too late. At the hospital, worsening patients were prepared for transfer, revealing that local doctors could not contain this emergency. The firefighters who protected the plant were now kept apart from their families as doctors searched for answers. Reactor 4 continued burning after sunset, illuminating the horizon while officials prepared an evacuation nobody could announce yet. Children returned from playgrounds carrying dust on shoes and sleeves, bringing the invisible accident into their apartments. Parents scrubbed floors and washed clothing without knowing ordinary water could not erase what the particles had delivered.
A nurse quietly warned a relative to close every window, spreading the first useful advice through personal trust.
Neighbors knocked from door to door, comparing rumors, as the city's silence became more frightening than the explosion. On highways beyond Pripyat, empty buses stretched for kilometers, their headlights approaching like a secret mechanical river. Police units assembled at intersections after dark, preparing crowd control before citizens even knew evacuation was coming. Inside government offices, stamped orders finally replaced debate, but the first 24 hours were almost gone. Residents sensed something serious was unfolding, yet most remained unpacked because no official evacuation order had arrived. Near midnight, Pripyat remained brightly lit, while a convoy of buses waited quietly beyond the city. The city entered its second night without warning, proving the greatest barrier to escape was not distance. It was invisibility reinforced by authority. People cannot flee a danger they are forbidden to understand. A full day after the explosion, Pripyat was still waiting, while buses gathered for the evacuation ahead. The answer is brutal. Survival depended less on courage than on receiving truthful information before exposure became unavoidable. Years later, abandoned rooms still held traces of daily life, showing how suddenly the city was left behind. Chernobyl's first day was not merely technical failure. It was a communication failure measured in human bodies. Remember the silent windows of Pripyat, and subscribe for more cinematic reconstructions of history's hidden turning points.